Well, the Bible Society Ghana is offering psychological, physical, and most importantly, spiritual help to traumatized patients in these challenging times. They're also distributing PPEs to various hospitals and the vulnerable in the society to keep the fight against the pandemic going. This comes at a time when Ghana is experiencing a hike in recorded cases of COVID-19, and many are also exhibiting denial or showing ignorance of the existence of the disease. Joining us via Zoom is the Programs and Church Relations Manager, Reverend Charles Edu Chumesi. Reverend Chumesi, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much for allowing us to come and contribute.
Right. I want to find out why you decided to go out. Who exactly are you targeting in this outreach? Who exactly is the Bible Society targeting in this outreach?
Thank you very much. The Bible Society is actually targeting not especially people who are affected with COVID, but we are targeting institutions that are helping with the fight against COVID, especially with the health institutions and also the police institution. And even to some extent, we are also looking at engaging the prisons office services so that we can also engage with them on the issue of the fight against the COVID.
So in these, your engagements with these people, what are your observations so far?
We have observed that the donations comes in very timely because these are items that are very much disposable, and so they receiving these items and other organizations which will also encourage them to do same helps them in their work, because this is critical to their work, and also as they are at the front line of fighting with this COVID, we need to ensure their safety also. So the Bible Society, in sending some of these PPEs, is also contributing to the fight. But then again, we are also looking beyond the PPEs, and the Bible Society's mandate is basically to translate scriptures into the various local languages in Ghana. And so in addition to some of the PPEs that we are giving to the institutions that we have mentioned, we are also giving them Bibles or scripture materials just to encourage the health workers and also to encourage persons who are receiving treatment in some of the COVID centers, so that at least they can also have the assurance of God's word that in the midst of the difficulties and the challenges, God is still with us, and God is still loving, and God is stronger, and that what they are going through, they are not going through alone, but the presence of the Lord is also with them. So that is one area for which we are also contributing. Then the other area has to do with, especially when one experiences suffering and one experiences loss, your hearts are wounded. When hearts are wounded, people need to express them. And in expressing them, they need to be listened to, and also so that you don't create more harms for them. And so the Bible Society, aside the Bibles that we distribute, we also have a resource material called the trauma healing material. And indeed, we are living in a period of trauma. If you are not affected, maybe probably a friend is affected, so you have the trauma. And so we are distributing these materials to the trauma healing materials to some of these institutions, so that at least as they get, they see some of these cases, especially the health workers, they would also be encouraged, and even for the victims also to be encouraged.
I just want you to speak to somebody or people who are living with coronavirus at the moment. A summary of what message is contained in the book on trauma that you talk about. There are two groups that I want you to speak to. First is those who are positive with coronavirus, and the health. Okay, so people who are not health or frontline health workers who are positive, and frontline health workers who were helping to save the situation and ended up being infected. So let's start with the frontline workers. What message can you give them to soothe whatever it is they're going through?
Yeah, they see a lot of the issues, and so we would refer to them as suffering from secondary trauma, and because they are not directly involved with it, but they see it. And so they begin to ask a lot of questions, and some of the questions you cannot have all the answers. So our encouragement to the health workers is that in as much as they are also sacrificing their lives, and in as much as they are giving much more time to help people who are affected, the encouragement is that their labors will not be in vain, and God would always reward them, and that God would always preserve them. And I believe that the Christian community and the other religious community are also praying for them, for their protection and for their preservation. So for the health workers and even for police and other security agencies, we are just with them praying that God will keep them safe, even as they are at the exposure of it, that the kind of risk that will come to them will be highly minimized, or certainly not. So that is for the health workers. But for those who are affected, in trauma healing, there are stages that we go through. One has to do with, you ask yourself the question, if God loves me, why do I suffer? And you begin to ask the question about, have I done something? Is it a punishment from God? Cultural nuances begin to set in. But we want to say that when you are affected, and everybody is at risk to it by no fault of yours. And so when you are affected, we want to assure you that in your suffering, the character of God.
Reverend Osuchumesi is Church Relations Manager with the Bible Society of Ghana. He seems to have frozen there. But I was taking a message for those of you, if you're watching us, who are living with COVID-19 at the moment. It will soon be over. It won't be for long. It will soon be over. Just keep taking care of yourself and listening to the advice of the health workers. As and when they come, you certainly will be fine. Okay, we've lost him. Let me so most of you are reacting really quickly to the story coming in from Parliament that some members of Parliament and staff have tested positive and are not staying at home. They're going to Parliament. So some of the messages are still coming in. This message says it's from Takrade, from Gabi, Papa Gabi. He says, so why is it that MPs who have tested positive are being hidden? So those big men all over the world that their names were mentioned, are they not human beings? For example, Papa Uswankoma, Papa from Takrade sends that. Let's get the wrap-up comments from Reverend Chumesi, who has joined us again. Reverend Chumesi, you can wrap up for me on the points, on your message for those who have tested positive.
To assure them of the presence of the Lord. And also, I believe that in their situation, we have counselors, we have psychologists who would also want to listen to them, because they might have a lot of questions on their mind and they need to be answered with. And so, and then again, for them also to go through, especially for victims of COVID, families who have lost their loved ones, you must also get them to go through the grieving processes, so that it is not like feelings, bad feelings and hurt feelings are buried. And so all these things goes in to help someone to come out of this situation. So we encourage people who are affected that it is not over. Hope is not lost. We have confidence in God that God can recover and God can heal.
Reverend Chumesi, we'll say a very big thanks to you. I hope that these words have encouraged somebody to know that there is still a better tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Reverend Chumesi is a Church Relations Manager for the Bible Society of Ghana.